Oh yeah.
Okay, and we are on. Okay. Hey everybody, Kelsey here. I'm joined today by Amelia, one of our rockstar clients, who is currently in the throes of transitioning to first year university at Western in London, Ontario. But we worked together in high school, and she's graciously agreed to come on and share about some of the challenges that she went through and how she overcame them. And I know that this will resonate with quite a lot of you. So with no further ado, Amelia, I'll hand it over to you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Problem. Thank you for letting me share my experience.
Awesome. So take it away. Maybe we can start with high school, entering high school, and just tell us about your situation when you started grade 9 and what was going right for you and what were you struggling with?
Okay, well, I was really nervous about the transition between middle school and high school because middle school was not the best experience for me. I didn't have many friends. I was kind of confused and lost with my time management skills. So I did have a lot of fear going into high school that it would be just a challenging transition and I wouldn't fit in. But when I got to high school in grade 9, I would say the first few months were difficult. I didn't really know how to manage my time properly with being a national swimmer, but
and hold on, national swimmer, for those who might not be familiar. So that's an elite athlete. And how many hours a week does that involve of practice?
20 plus hours.
So basically like a part-time job.
Yeah.
On top of school full-time.
Yes. So I was quite drained the first few months, especially for me, math was a huge struggle. So just off the bat, not receiving the grades I wanted in that course really just brought down my self-confidence. But I would say as the year progressed, I learned how to manage my time properly by reaching out and really getting help. Kelsey really helped me with that too. And I think grade 9 was honestly just a learning experience for me. I used that year it was a transition year. So it really just was a learning experience, I would say.
Okay, which makes total sense. So out of the things, as far as that transition goes and that learning experience, you mentioned the time management a few times,
yeah.
Especially based on your course load with your swimming. So let's delve into that a little bit, because time management is something that, most adults I know still struggle with. So for students, it's a huge issue. So what specifically did you find challenging about managing your time? And then also what exactly did you do? And I know obviously we work together, so I know kind of what we did, but share what made the biggest difference for you as far as getting a handle and feeling more in control and not being controlled by time.
Yes. Well, the first thing I did was, I am a very visual person. You can also do this online, but I like to draw out my schedule, map it out for the week, bi-weekly, say what I have to accomplish, how I'm going to accomplish it, because by doing that, it's an easy way to transition into doing nothing to schoolwork. It's a nice balance in between. So I would do that. And at first, I wouldn't really follow through with that because I would get too carried away with making the schedule and not doing it. But over time, I realized I wanted to satisfy my schedule that I made by working it out and actually following through with my due dates and assignments. So what I did, I treated every day, even the weekends, like a school day. I would block out a time to do a certain thing, and I would almost reward myself if I accomplished that task, whether it's just taking a 20-minute nap after I finish an assignment or just making some warm tea or anything. So I think the rewarding system does help, because I learned how schoolwork isn't actually that bad once you get in the zone. Mm-hmm. And understanding that, yes, you might not understand all the assignments, which is holding you back from moving forward with completing your work. But as soon as you get over that fear with making your lists and actually doing the work, it's not as bad as you think it is. So I would say, again, rewarding system and overcoming the fear are probably the two main things in order to become successful with managing your time.
Man, those are such good insights. And I want to also point out something that you said that I hadn't actually heard it framed like this. And I think it's brilliant. If I'm understanding correctly, that planning, actually looking forward to what I have to do, you're looking at that as a transition from doing nothing, like you said. And it's not actually schoolwork. That was kind of I don't want to know if it's fun, but the part where you got to kind of breathe and be calm as you planned out before actually doing anything.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you always look at it like that? Or did you kind of have to work up to being like, this is a safe space. It's not, doesn't have to be anxiety. I can just do this without feeling overwhelmed.
I did have to work up to it a bit. I think it really helped, well, having you and my parents to kind of push that against me. Just getting the reassurance really helped, I found. I would say it's a mix of reassurance, but then you also have to put in your own effort to do it. And honestly, I know deep down every student wants to be successful, but lots of things hold them back. So just again, as I said before, the reassurance really helps because it's actually not as frightening, the schoolwork, as it may seem like it is.
Yes. And that's the other part I wanted to ask you to unpack a little bit, that fear piece, because 100%, there's so much fear associated with schoolwork, especially with certain subjects like math, especially tends to bring out so much fear for so many people. So for you, how did that fear, like what exactly was the fear about? Like, was it that you wouldn't be able to do the work, or that it would take too long, or like there's so many possible ways to experience that? What was it for you?
I would say all of the above. Honestly, my fear, math specifically, but it can be obviously different for other students. It was because I was not that strong at math in middle school, and that failure just kept on piling on, and I was almost used to failure, which really just drained my confidence. So obviously that was a big thing, just low self-esteem, but also I just was kind of scared of it because I just didn't know how to do it, or it was time consuming, taking up all my other availability to do other work because I just couldn't get a problem. It was taking hours. But I think a thing that made me overcome it is just learn to enjoy failure. Just know that each math problem or whatever problem you're doing is kind of like unsolving its own riddle. And try to make learning and failure fun, if that makes any sense. Just because it's hard, math is hard, but learning to decode the problem is really fun.
I love that so much. So yeah, that perspective, because there's so many students, and again, a lot of adults too. Like it always amazes me to see the continuity from school to, post school, that some of these same thinking patterns like don't disappear necessarily, but thinking that failure is something to be avoided, right? That it can be avoided, so we should avoid it at all costs, as opposed to, no, I'm going to fail at stuff, like for sure, and may as well embrace it and make the most of it. Is that kind of an accurate? Okay.
It is, especially because in high school, I had this one really good science teacher who even told me about her high school and university experiences when she has a PhD now, but she failed some university courses, and like she's still doing fine because you have to just learn how to push past it.
So becoming friends with failure, and essentially failure, almost that word, like we should rebrand it, eh? Because like it has such a negative connotation.
It does.
What could we call it? What do you think would be a more helpful term?
Instead of failure, I would put it as a speed bump or a learning curve.
Speed bump or learning curve. Both of those are awesome. Yes, absolutely. So, okay. So yeah, becoming friends with failure, learning to have fun with it. Like you said, that's so great. And then, okay. So as far as your grade 9 transition year and kind of those things, the reward system, feeling like it's okay to fail, reducing that fear, and that helped.
Yes, it did.
So what exactly did that help with, and what were the outcomes of that? Like, how did things change for you when you started to get a handle on the time management, actually executing your schedule?
When I felt like my mental health really improved, just because I was so stressed and in my own space a lot of the times that it was hard to get everything done. But I feel like, I know there's a saying, I think it takes like 21 days to start a new habit or be good at something. And I truly believe in that because I've learned how to make it my routine. After practicing, it's okay if you fail or have a learning curve in between practicing this task, but it becomes second nature after a while. I find that once you get a grasp on it, you feel lost without managing your time and learning how to accept your failures, because you're just in such a good headspace once you start this routine that like it's hard to kind of turn away, you just want to progress and keep on doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. It's almost like when you get there, when you get over that hump, you have that perspective of, wow, that sucked. Like I'm so
Yeah,
happy that's over, and now you know it doesn't have to suck, so you don't want to go back, to put it in like you put it more
exactly.
eloquently. But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as the mental health, if I can ask, were
Mhm.
there any other, strategies or tools that you use to kind of maintain a good mental health space throughout
Yeah.
high school, or
So
were there, yeah.
yeah, for me, grade 9 was actually, yes, I struggled with just anxiety thoughts because it was a new experience to me. But like, I found my anxiety really just got a hold of me in grade 10. Um, and the way I kind of coped with it is I was really open to my teachers, which I know is a really hard task to just like open up about something that you don't really want to admit to. But having a group of close friends or teachers that you can go to for help is really good. I also had an anxiety kind of toolkit that I kept in my bag. So I had this like, actually, I have it right here. It's from Sage. It's a stress release roller. You just like put it on your hand and then it smells good. I find it really helps because scents really help calm you down. Listening to music, I had my earbuds in. Sometimes I would just step outside of the class if I really needed to. Um, just things like that to calm you down. 4 square breathing when you hold in for 4, or breathe in for 4, hold in for 4, breathe out for 4, and like continue that. That really helps. And I would just say, in terms of anxiety related to school specifically, if you're in class and you're just overwhelmed with work, I would say again, if you haven't, try to write down your plan of how to accomplish things, because seeing it on paper is less daunting than in your head.
Hmm.
And lastly, I would say just if you need to step outside of the room when your anxiety or panic attacks come on, it's honestly fine because no one's going to judge you. No one's going to even know what's really going on. And sometimes just going into the bathroom, having water, take a breath, step aside of the environment does help.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important message that I wish you could scream from the rooftops, because a lot of students do feel a lot of shame, like about having mental health challenges or having anxiety. And you face that, it seems, quite head on. And I know that didn't happen
Yeah.
for you overnight, but what are some things that helped with feeling genuinely comfortable and confident with, like, yeah, I had this is happening, this is a part of what I'm feeling, and it's okay, and really just having such a good perspective on it?
Honestly, reassuring myself that it is anxiety, it's nothing worse than it, was a key aspect, I would think, of overcoming it. Because sometimes you think that there's something wrong with you, like physically. I honestly, sometimes I would search up on Google anxiety symptoms. So I would reassure that, yes, it is anxiety. It's not anything else. And just like, I would say, yeah, reassurance is the biggest thing. Just know that you're okay. You're in a safe spot. Honestly, school is like, it's a safe place to be in. There's so many teachers there that are just there for you, even if it doesn't seem like that, even if they're failing you or something. They do care. They're for the most part, not evil. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet they wish too that they could scream that from the rooftops, like,
Oh
we're your
yeah.
allies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you become closer with them, you realize that there is a good in teachers. They're not there to fail you.
Yeah. So that would seem, just to tie back to what you said earlier about, getting over that hump of fear, not just
Yeah.
as far as like executing your schedule and doing the work, but also as far as, even if you genuinely feel like there is something wrong with you, or like you would be embarrassed or you would be judged, to
Mm-hmm.
essentially, whatever it takes to get over that hump, to be open to getting help, to feeling reassured, to having that
Yeah.
support. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's awesome.
Of
So
course.
Amelia, keep moving us forward then.
Yeah.
So grade 10 was, it seems like, lots of learning curve as far as the anxiety goes. As far as the academics go, at that point, you kind of had your time management, your
Yeah.
assignment management under control, more or less.
Yeah. I would say it got a bit better in grade 10. Honestly, grade 10 was a weird year because obviously you want to do well in grade 10, but universities don't necessarily look at grade 10 marks unless you're taking a grade 11 credit. And obviously you want to do well in grade 10, but it just seemed like a filler year in a way. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life because I just didn't. You had to like kind of look at universities in grade 10, but also focus on taking your mandatory courses. So honestly, I think grade 10 was just a continuation of grade 9, getting in the rhythm, getting used to the school.
Mm.
I was thankful for that year in a way because I personally thought I learned the most in grade 10 about myself. Workload from grade 9 and 10 wasn't much of a jump. I would say from grade 10 to 11, there was a jump. Grade 11 for me wasn't too bad. I learned to be more involved with extracurriculars affiliated with the school, which really helped. I joined a choir, and I was also on the mental health council. So I found that really helpful because I was able to talk about my struggles to other girls because I went to an all-girls school, but also just being involved in a choir with a group, like it was just amazing. It was a way of like an outlet of letting out my stress from school. So that was good. And then grade 12, I honestly thought the academic jump from grade 11 to 12, I found out there was a jump. Some people say that there wasn't, but I personally thought there was. Maybe it was just because of applications for university on top of grade 12 work, but I did find the beginning of grade 12 a challenge. But I was thankful for my challenges and time management skills that I learned from previous years, which helped me get through the year.
Yeah, that's so well put. And that really paints a clear picture of like the grade 9, 10 acting more like you're building out this foundation and
Yeah.
having these big struggles when the stakes weren't super high.
Yeah.
So that grade 11 and 12, when the work was harder, universities are looking at those grades, that you actually could use the tools that you'd been sharpening the previous years.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay. So tell us about, so for grade 12, going through grade 12 and then transitioning into first year.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, like, how did you feel about the transition? Like, were you excited? Were you apprehensive? How did you feel about coming up to graduation?
For the most part, I was really excited for a change. I was ready for more independence. Honestly, I was ready to just discover myself in a new city because I'm from Toronto. London's a few hours away. But for the most part, I was excited. I was a bit nervous about the grades, how much they were going to drop. But
let me ask you about that. So why did you assume they were going to drop?
Because I heard from my first year friends when I was in grade 12 that their marks did drop. And they do. I'm not going to lie, they do drop. But it's almost, I don't know, I felt less like, I don't want to be hard on myself saying I was a failure, but I felt to myself less as a failure when I didn't do so well on an assignment in university because everyone else is in the same boat. Everyone else's marks are dropping. Obviously, there's that 1% of people that don't drop, but honestly, I didn't find it that bad. Yeah.
Well, to what extent do you think that the work that you did, the effort that you put in to developing that resilience, to developing those skills through high school, do you think that was a big barrier or not so much? Do you think it would have been?
I think not so much, just because I mentally prepared myself really well for the transition. I just surrounded myself a lot with people in the summer that reassured me that it wasn't going to be as challenging as I perceived it to be. And just knowing that my parents will still love me if I didn't do well in an assignment, or just like, it's not the end of the world. Just having that going in. And then I just remembered to practice I know I keep on coming back to it, but time management skills, that's a key way of making sure your marks don't drop. You're going to witness people partying first week of university every night. You're going to see people slack off, just sleep in all day, but you have to find balance in that and learning how to treat every day like you would in high school, honestly, because you do have more time in university. So just continue with that routine that you had in high school.
Yeah, I love that. So it's the greater autonomy that you mentioned you were seeking in grade 12, but balanced out by a pretty reasonable perspective on keeping it together, basically,
Yeah.
not like going crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So tell us a bit more about, and I am cognizant of time, but we're still good for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about, so now that you have been transitioning, you mentioned your grades did drop a little bit,
Yeah.
but overall, how are you finding the experience? Do you wish that you had done something different to prepare? It sounds like obviously you did a lot of things right to prepare. You're feeling good, but overall.
I'm finding my experience pretty good so far. I have a good group of friends. I have study groups, I highly recommend study groups because sometimes you can't go out and socialize with friends at night, but you can still get a socializing aspect while studying. I know studying is not the most fun thing to do, but it does also help prepare you for tests. Highly recommend because you get different insights on just different topics. I'm trying to think of something else that worked. Getting involved is a big thing because you can easily get caught up in your own head space, which is really hard. I'm actually the floor representative for my floor in residence, which was really fun. I volunteered to do it. I was nominated at the spot, and that's really a good leadership position for me. I've been busy coordinating events for that. And in terms of something that I wish I knew going into university would probably be, I would say that, okay, this sounds kind of bad, but just like, I wish that I was prepared almost more mentally, because I know I did say how I mentally prepared myself in the summer, but being away from home is hard, not gonna lie. Like, I've managed well, but just, I wish I knew how to reach out a bit more in high school, even though I did. There are some times when I think that I'm okay, I have everything under my belt, I know how to handle everything, but then it comes to like a really anxiety-provoking experience. I don't know, like there might be something building up and that causes you to break down, and like it's hard to like kind of reach out by that point. So just having more resources going into university might have helped more. And like I know there are resources like on campus which are really good. I've actually most recently I booked an appointment there. I wish I did it sooner, but just I would say familiarizing yourself with like the resources you have would be a big thing.
Yeah, that's huge. And through the lens of it doesn't have to be a last resort. Like that can be
Yeah.
something that the second anything kind of crops up, like it's there, right? Why not use it type thing.
Mm-hmm. Because yeah, as I said before, the academic drop, like it didn't affect me too much, but it's affected people. It still does affect me. So just knowing that you're not the only one too, that really helps.
Yeah, and that I think ties back to what you said about the study groups, which
Yeah.
is so great because so many students, they isolate academics from everything else. So they see it as like this siloed, they do their schoolwork and then everything else is separate, where it's like you're missing out on so much. Like it can be so much more holistic, it can be social, it can be that part with the focal of academics, but like you get that support, you get that I'm not alone in this boat, all of that stuff. So study groups, I love that you said that. That's so important.
Yeah.
Did you find that like did you make the initiative to do that, or like were kids like responsive? Were they like, what are you talking about?
No, I actually made the initiative to do it. And once I did, people really wanted to join me. I think the biggest thing is that lots of people are scared to initiate something. So you have to be the bigger person. Same with lectures. Someone might have a question and you might be too scared to ask. But if you ask, I guarantee you that like 50 other people in the lecture room have the same question. And you benefit from asking the question. The prof will know who you are. Well, it depends how big the lecture is, but you have that benefit, plus everyone else gets to learn from your questions. So not being scared about that.
Amelia, you could give lessons on like stepping out of your comfort zone, eh?
Yeah, it was big. I was the most introverted person before I entered high school, but I think just the transition from high school to university, well, middle school, high school, university, I just grew as a person.
Yeah, and just seconded. I mean, I met you before you started high school, and there was, I think you didn't quite want to look me in the eyes when we first met. It was like, because it was a tougher time, and weren't so sure about what's going on, and now it's
And
just
I was injured. I remember when I first met you, I had a really severe injury, and that was on top of school, and it wasn't great, and I just was so distressed. But yeah.
tough period, but you came out of it like an absolute champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you just outlining that kind of high level, it's like, I think that you're just so inspiring, I have to say. Like the way that you're taking initiative, it's honestly incredible. So tell us just a couple of final questions here, but tell us, what are your goals for the upcoming term or year?
Yeah.
And how do you plan to accomplish them?
So my biggest goal is next year. They have a thing at Western called an orientation leader, which it's a set of upper year students, anywhere from second to fourth year, that mentor the first year students by living in residence and just helping them throughout the year. So my goal, I'm actually working on my application right now, and it's to become a residence. They call them resident softs, like sophomore, but that's my goal, because I want to continue inspiring others, because it's first year is such a weird year. There's so many new things. You're away from home for the most part. School is different. So that's my biggest goal, just to be a leader to younger students. And academically, my goal is to honestly just continue what I'm doing. I am really liking my system right now of how I balance academics with my social life and extracurriculars. So just like continuing that. Yeah, that would be a big thing.
That's huge. And would you say, as far as like the top 2 or 3 things for balancing schoolwork with extracurriculars, with like having a social life, having downtime, are they the same as you mentioned before, as far as the reward system, or are there a set of different things, or has it been continuous?
I would say it's around the same, but instead, like, I found in high school, I would like reward myself with like sleep, because I was pretty sleep deprived. And not saying I'm still not sleep deprived because it's university, but now I kind of reward myself with hanging out with friends, because honestly, it's so easy to isolate yourself in university, because I don't come home to my parents. I come home to my room, which is sometimes empty because my roommate's not always in my room. So just finding other people to talk to is a really big thing. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Yeah, and that's also, I think that goes back to the mental health thing in a big way. Like, so many people assume, and I actually assume this too, it's like going to college, you're around so many people all the time, you would never be alone. And it's like, you can actually feel the most alone.
Yeah.
And that's a really disjointed sense that I think a lot of people aren't really prepared for.
Yeah.
So actively seeking out connection. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So final 2 questions here. Number 1, if you could go back to younger Amelia transitioning into grade 9, having a hard time of it, what advice would you give her, or what do you wish you had known at that point?
I wish that I knew how to reach out more at that point, because I felt like if I just reached out and talked to my teachers more about my fears about school, I would have been set up for success more. I would also recommend going into extra help if your school provides that, because going in to extra help, whether it's in the morning or after school, like just office hours for teachers, it really helps, because that shows that you're taking in the initiative to improve your mark. And the teachers really respect that, because they're allotting more time in the day to help their students, because that's what they're there for. So I would just say branching out to teachers is a big thing. And I wish that I did do more extracurriculars. I know, well, I was really busy with being a national elite athlete, but just if you can do more things involved in school, because they have so many clubs at school, and it's a great way to just find your passions, be with friends. It's a good stress reliever. So that's what I would do.
And for any students or parents listening, I want to emphasize what Amelia just said. It's a great way to find your passions, not just to like chalk up the resume or to chalk up like a college application, but like to genuinely use it as a means to introspect and figure out like, what do I enjoy? What do I want to do? Yeah. So to genuinely take advantage. That's awesome. And then last but not least, as far as I think we'll have some parents watching, like what is there anything that, you would have told your parents back then? Your parents are obviously rock stars. But just as far as that, anything that, that students feel, that kids feel, that often like you said earlier, it's not easy to reach out. It's not easy to open up, just
Mhm.
things that would be helpful or
Yeah.
insights.
I would say two things. One, the main thing I would say is to reassure that it's not the end of the world if you don't do well on an assignment. Because lots of kids think that if they fail one assignment, their whole life is over. Just reassuring them about that, plus just being there to maybe support them and figure out new methods to set them up for success. And another thing, well, I know how we briefly mentioned, just to know that they're not alone, check in on their mental health because it's so easy to hide something. Obviously, you don't want to force it upon them and kind of harass them 24/7 asking, oh, what's up, because that obviously will shine them away too from opening up. But just saying that, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm always there for you. If you need to come to me for anything, just let me know. That's the biggest thing. My mom said that to me one time. Well, that was after a teacher kind of noticed I looked anxious in class, but then I didn't know that my teacher contacted my mom. But my mom that later that night just said, hey, if like ever you need to talk, let me know. And then I ended up opening up to her because I just couldn't hold it back any longer. So yeah.
Yeah, just inviting that space.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Amelia, thank you so much for coming on today and
Thank
sharing
you.
your story. That's, I know I said it before, it is so inspiring, where you started, how you evolved, where you're at right now. And sorry, you're on scholarship too.
Yeah.
Like, let's just brag about that for a second.
Thank you.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yes. It's nice.
It is awesome. Okay. Any final takeaways before we wrap up?
As I reiterated before, just don't stress out because high school isn't as bad as the movies make it seem. And what other people say too, that people blow things out of proportion. Just focus on you. That's a big thing. Focus on you, focus on the experience. Hard times will pass. There will be good times through it all. So yeah, enjoy yourself.
That is awesome. That's the perfect way to end out. Enjoy yourself. It'll pass. All right, Amelia, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And everybody else, I will catch you on the next video. Bye, guys.